Great, and we're live. So welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette, and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And super excited all the way today from Hong Kong, I have Bhavneet Chahal on the line. And Bhav, you are the co-founder and CEO of GoSkills, which is a way for people to enhance their skills for the workplace online, which I am super excited about. But before we get into that, let me ask you, what does your virtual office look like? What do you need to get your work done?
Hi, Lizette. Lovely to be here and lovely to meet you. Our virtual office, so I'm an entrepreneur. We have a very small team of 9. Everyone works from home from all over the world. I'm here in Hong Kong. We've got about 5 people in New Zealand, a couple in the States, and we've just hired a developer from Cuba.
Wow, that's really all. We are going to get into time zones at some point, but okay. So you've got 9 people in 7 different time zones, I read.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay, and everybody works from home.
Yeah, it works. Well, most people work from home. Myself and we have a marketing manager here in Hong Kong. We both work from a co-working space.
Ah, okay. So what do you need to get your work done then?
I suppose we need a laptop, fast internet connection, a time zone that's relatively close to the other team members. And that's it. Ideally, a quiet-ish workspace.
Yeah, which you're in a co-working space now for those watching the video portion of this, and it is very quiet indeed. So you can, oh yeah, you're going to show. So if those have never seen a co-working space, you can see. So you're in a small office,
yes,
off from the open space.
Yes, that's right. So there's a large co-working space outside, and we have these small meeting rooms, and it's designed for startups. So normally if you go into a large sort of maybe corporate space, you have very large board-like meeting rooms. In this co-working space, we have smaller meeting rooms, which fits smaller teams, which is ideal because we have lots of calls and I don't need multiple people. When I'm having a call, it's just usually myself or one other person.
So why did you choose a co-working space over working from home?
That's a great question. So I've moved countries since starting up GoSkills. When I first started GoSkills, I did work from home in Sydney, and I found that fine because I had my own network in Sydney and my friends in Sydney, and I enjoyed the peace and quiet of working from home. However, we then moved to Hong Kong, and I was new in Hong Kong. And normally when you move to a new country, you have an immediate network of friends or people, usually your colleagues, that you can get acquainted with, that you can befriend, that you can get to know and build your network. But as a remote worker, moving to a new country and not having a network already there, I thought it was really important to build my network, and not moving into a company. A co-working space seemed like the ideal place to meet people, build my network, and make some friends.
Yeah, super smart idea, actually, because you're right. It's like people who are doing things that you're obviously probably other entrepreneurs who are working remotely or people even locally. So you get to meet a mix of people, I assume.
Absolutely, yeah. All my friends in Hong Kong are people that I've met through my co-working spaces.
Super smart.
Yeah. And I think people here in general are very open. It's quite a transient sort of town. People come in, they go. And so everyone is sort of in the same boat. And so it's very easy to meet people, to hang out with people straight after work, go on holidays together. It's a very friendly and open place.
Yeah, great way to meet new people when you've moved to a new location, a co-working space. That's probably the first thing that I would do, is join a co-working space. Oh yeah, totally great.
Exactly.
So let's talk about GoSkills. I'm super excited to see it. It says online learning that helps anyone enhance skills for the workplace. So what is it, and why did you start it?
That's a good story. So we do bite-sized business courses. And we started because I purchased an Excel course a number of years ago, and I was really disappointed with what I got. It was a site that looked like it had come out of the 1990s, and the course consisted of PDF downloads. There were some videos, but they were very, very long. And so we thought that we could do it better. We thought that online courses should be done better. So we created an Excel course because it was very popular at the time, and we had a good distribution channel. I reached out to an Excel instructor to create the content for us. And right from the beginning, we knew we wanted bite-sized videos, so 3 to 5 minute videos, as well as some interactive content like quizzes, cheat sheets, exercises to go with each video. And then I got in touch with my co-founder in New Zealand and showed him the opportunity. He then created the technology to put the courses onto, and we really wanted to focus on user experience and design to make the learning experience as enjoyable as possible.
And how many courses do you have now?
I think we have about 60 courses.
Wow.
A few in the pipeline.
Yeah, I saw on your website that you have over 100,000 users of these courses. So well done. Obviously, people need these online courses. I mean, I think if I were going to go back to school, I would not go to the brick and mortar classroom again. I would probably do it with a video and learning with other people online.
Yeah, on-demand courses where you can learn at your own pace from any location, from any device, I think is the way of the future.
Yeah, universities, watch out for those of us in our 40s still paying off university debt. So these online courses look very attractive. So now you said something really interesting in your email to me. You said that you started and you grew this startup as a non-tech person. So I want to ask about that. What was your experience? I mean, you built a highly technical site as a non-tech person. I don't know why you describe yourself as a non-tech person, but I'll let you get into that. But what was your experience with that? What have you learned?
So I guess we started because I spotted an opportunity to create high quality online courses. And when I say I'm a non-tech person, as in I'm not a coder or a programmer, I didn't create the technology. But I've also been very lucky to have an amazing co-founder who is technical and who has built all of the technology. And we grew it together with myself doing everything in the business non-technical. So the business development, the sales. I really enjoy UX and design, although I'm not a designer myself, but working with designers. And yeah, basically all the non-technical challenges of growing a business was interesting for me, and I could rely on a really good co-founder to manage the technology.
Yeah, indeed. And I would think that it would be it's a rare person that has that both skill sets in one. The entrepreneur skill set and then the development and the coding. I mean, those are totally different things in my opinion. So just because you can code doesn't mean you can run a business. We've seen that over and over again.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
So how did you find the other people, the other 9 people that are working for you?
That's also a fantastic question. So my co-founder I knew from previous work. I worked as a consultant for his company. And he had worked with some software developers previously. So that's how we grew our software development team. And the other people were mainly through referrals or sort of people that I've known for a very long time. Our head of marketing and operations is actually one of my best friends from high school.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's fantastic to work with such a good friend within the business. The other people on our team are referrals from people that we know. And I think I mentioned at the beginning, we've recently hired a developer from Cuba. And we found him by advertising on WeWorkRemotely.io, which is a fantastic site to look for developers looking for remote jobs. And yeah, so he's currently the only one that we've hired that hasn't been through a referral or through someone that we've met before. And then we also have Crystal in Hong Kong, who we met through a speed recruiting event.
Okay, exciting. So now let's get into the time zones. So there's between Cuba and Hong Kong and New Zealand. I don't even know. What's the biggest time zone difference? I don't know if it's between Cuba and New Zealand or Hong Kong and New Zealand.
Yeah, basically Cuba is the Eastern time zone in the States, and the difference between Hong Kong and EDT, I think, is 12 hours. So that's the maximum. And as well as those core team members, we work with a number of consultants and freelancers. So we've also got an illustrator, for example, in the Ukraine, and we've got a UX designer in Johannesburg in South Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're really 24 hours.
So, okay, what are the tools you guys use to communicate and talk to each other? How do you do it?
Yeah, communication is so important with a remote team. We are constantly on Slack, so everyone communicates via Slack. It's totally replaced email within our business. We only use email basically to communicate with external people. So Slack is important. We used to use Skype for our team calls, but we've recently moved our team calls to Slack as well. We share screens when we have our team calls, and Slack recently introduced that feature, so we've moved basically all our communication to Slack. And then in terms of project management, we use Trello as a way to track, manage, assign tasks, things like that.
And a lot of people on Slack complain about overload because it's so easy just to type, enter. And I mean, it's like there's so much noise. All of a sudden you're talking about books, marketing, sales, everything. And I know I could sit in front of my Slack and just watch messages come in all day if I wanted to. So how do you manage it?
That's a fantastic question. So we used to have something like 20 Slack channels. And just a couple of weeks ago, we decided to consolidate that to 6, so that we don't have multiple channels, and we don't need to keep checking different channels for what's the latest. So we consolidated our channels. That was the first thing we did. And we kind of also have a policy of, mention it if it's relevant, but we expect you to sort of filter irrelevant bits of information. Last year, we had someone on our team who was a massive Slack user, and she would just send loads and loads of articles and lots of things, and sometimes the things were a bit distracting and not 100% relevant. So we sort of made a little policy of you guys be the filter. If it's relevant, add it to the relevant channel. Otherwise, keep it to yourselves.
Right. I had somebody on a team once also that was just like, she was 1,000,000 miles a minute and just moving faster than other people on the team. And it was an overload, I got to say. So we made a special channel for her so she could still post and others could opt in whether or not they wanted to see all the information. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So back to time zones then again, though, what special things have you guys put in place in order to manage it? Because 12 hours, that's significant. So, and we can't squeeze the world closer together. I don't know, maybe during daylight savings, but during that 2 weeks, you get like 1 hour. It's you're 11 hours apart instead of 12 for 2 weeks of the year or something. But what do you guys do to manage it?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Someone always has to sacrifice a little bit. So usually we have the calls in early morning Hong Kong time, which is evening in the States or in the East Coast. And it's not ideal because there are sacrifices that need to be made.
Yeah.
And then managing it, we use timeanddate.com meeting planner to see if we have a new meeting that we need to schedule for. But otherwise, we have just a regular meeting in our calendar. So we have one all hands on deck meeting a week, and that's a standing meeting. So you don't need to arrange a new time every time you want to have everyone on board. That's just, you know, that, you know, for us it's on it's Tuesday morning Hong Kong time, Monday evening Eastern time, and it's in your calendar for the rest of the year, so you can sort of manage
and plan around it. Yeah. Time zones are always tough. I'm always trying to find, like, is there some magic cure that we can use? But no, somebody's always getting up late or getting up early, and that's the consequence of working globally, I think, on a global team sometimes.
Yeah, it's a bit of a myth when people say, oh, you have an online business, you can work from the beach, from anywhere. And technically it is true, but in reality it doesn't really work that way, because you still need to be within a relatively close time zone with your colleagues.
Well, and also anybody that's tried working from the beach knows how completely not handy it is with the sun and the sand and it's just like, no, it looks great in the pictures, but logistically it's just, it's not exactly the best thing. It's true. No. So what do you guys struggle with then?
Definitely hiring. Yeah, I think like any startup though, or any business, talent is so important, especially when you're small. I used to hear things like, oh, it's so important to hire based on culture fit. And I didn't really understand what that meant until we had someone who was not a great culture fit. And that really slowed us down. And so hiring, with good culture fit and hiring remotely has been a challenge, and I think it will be a challenge as we scale our business.
How have you put things in place to try to find a good culture fit? Because I find it so hard in the beginning. Everybody's on their best behavior, like everybody's trying to make a good impression. So it's so hard to tell what's going to be good. So how do you know?
It's really hard, especially since you're not sitting down with someone. You're basically just interviewing them, with a video, and you don't know what they do after the video or before the video, or how they are in their day-to-day lives. What have we done in place? I guess we have a culture of hiring fast and firing fast. So if we think that we like someone, we do hire them, and you figure out pretty quickly whether they fit within the company or not, especially since we have very regular calls and a lot of communication on Slack. You can sort of tell quickly if someone works or not.
Right, whether or not. So I like that, hiring fast and firing fast. I think that's where a lot of companies drop the ball, is in the onboarding phase. They keep people on far longer than they need to be kept on. And it sounds so harsh, but at the end of the day, we have a business to run. So, we need the right people, and the right people makes and breaks a business. So yeah, I like that. I know it sounds harsh, but I like it. So I want to talk a little bit. Oh, yeah. Has to be done. It's business. It's not. We're not at a party. We're running a business. So, in terms of managing, though, what makes a good virtual manager, and how is it different, do you think, from in person?
So I think with virtual teams, you have to have a lot of trust in your people, that they are putting in the hours, and that they are completing tasks to the best of their ability. And for us, because it's not like we're factory workers. We don't clock in and clock out. A lot of our roles are based on tasks. So we use Trello, for example, to assign tasks to people, and it's either done or it's not done. So managing the people becomes less about sort of watching over their shoulders or micromanaging someone, and more around assigning tasks and making sure that when the tasks are done, that they're to a high standard or meet our standards. And if not, having a conversation about that. But it's tough, especially for sort of if you're hiring recent graduates or people that are new to the workforce that don't understand perhaps what a full day's workload is like, or sort of issues like that is where I think having a sort of a more mature or people that have experience with full day workloads is an easier transition to then working remotely, because you understand what you're meant to be doing, and you also have probably sort of better reporting abilities, and you understand that because you're working remotely, you have to over communicate with your managers or with your team to give other people confidence that you are working and that you are doing what you're meant to be doing.
Right. If you're posting those articles in Slack, you're probably working. So it's kind of, I mean, not necessarily. You could just be, you know, excited about articles, of course, but it's true that working out loud, that being present and showing your teammates that you're also there. Do you have any sort of core hours for your team? I can't imagine that you would, given the time zone differences, but is there something like that?
Yeah, we do ask people to sort of be around during their normal working hours. So, you know, usually around 9 to 5, with some exception around evening calls or morning calls. But we don't expect, and it's mainly to allow people to communicate with each other, knowing that they'll get a response relatively soon. So yeah, we do ask for sort of normal working hours.
And do you have any other sort of team agreement that you start with? Like you have as a team, you've agreed to work in these ways. Did you put any sort of policies in place with your team, or how do you manage that?
Not officially, no. I suppose we don't really have it's something that we should have, but we don't have a great onboarding policy at the moment. It's sort of, you kind of just get thrown into the middle of everything. So
also a good way to learn.
Yeah, but probably not so scalable. So we don't have anything like a team agreement. But in our contracts, we do sort of state relative time zones and be available for calls and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And for yourself, how do you stay productive? I mean, it's your company, so that is very motivating. I can relate. It's very much more motivating when it's your company. But, you know, how do you make sure that you keep yourself on track, that you're putting in the workload that you've committed to on a regular basis? What are your productivity hacks?
That's a great question. And even though I am the founder, I think it's natural to go through productivity dips and to not be motivated on some days. I found this to be especially true at the beginning, where, you know, you are relying so much on other people, and sometimes there's just not enough to do, or you're waiting for replies. And you have days where you just feel demotivated. But a couple of hacks that I have, if you are having a day where you're feeling demotivated, just do that one critical thing you need to do that day. Because there's that one thing where, you know, you have to do. And if you do that and you don't do anything else for the rest of the day, you at least feel satisfied.
Right.
And in terms of my day-to-day, I have a to-do list. It's very, very basic, but it's sort of like all the things I need to do. And as soon as I'm assigned a task, or as soon as I have a conversation with someone and I realize I have something to do, I immediately add it to my to-do list. And then I prioritize that to-do list. I color code it basically to prioritize it. So red is absolutely need to do ASAP. Amber is, you know, middle, and then I've got a green sort of do if you have some time or can think about it right now.
Right. It needs to be done at some point, or it will fall off the list eventually. when
Yeah, it's funny how that happens.
totally.
Sometimes if you ignore a problem long enough, it does just disappear.
It's true. Not the best strategy, but it does it does work in some cases. I mean, I think the secret ingredient for running a successful business is prioritizing, right? I mean, you can do a million things. There's always something you can do to grow your business, but there's only a certain amount of time and energy in the day.
Absolutely, yeah. And not just like, it's not just prioritizing your own tasks, but prioritizing features, prioritizing, yeah. I think that's the one thing I've learned the most is saying no, because we have so many ideas all the time, and at the beginning of a startup, your product is so amorphous and it can grow in so many different directions. So really focusing on what your core product is, and then really prioritizing your features has been one of the greatest lessons for me.
Oh yeah, I can imagine for any entrepreneur, that's like the hardest thing is like, what do you do next? What's the most important feature? Because you don't want to build them all. That's also a
No,
nightmare for the product. Yeah. Oh, but what do people need the most? Okay,
yeah.
but back to back to remote team. Sorry, I'm starting to get in like, oh yeah, when I grew my business, and okay, but we're starting to run out of time too. But I do want to ask you. Oh, I just lost my train of thought, but I do. Oh, I wanted to ask you about co-working spaces, because in your
Yes.
email you had said you have some insights into good and bad co-working spaces. So
Yeah.
let's loop back to that and tell me what makes a good co-working space.
Yes, so definitely the community. And I don't really know what the secret sauce is for a good community, but I had it in my first co-working space in Hong Kong, and it's going to sound weird, but you kind of just feel it as you walk into the co-working space, whether there's a good atmosphere or not. And with that space, everyone just felt it, and the atmosphere was great. I think there are physical things that led to a great co-working space, and I think one of them is having open space. So I really like large open spaces with lots of small meeting rooms for personal calls or meetings. But having that large open space means you're physically looking at people all the time. And if you're looking at people, you can't really walk by and not say hi or not introduce yourself. So I think that helps. Having a central kitchen or pantry or coffee machine. In the old days, a water cooler certainly helps, because you can go up to the coffee machine, make your coffee, and you bump into people and you end up having conversations that way. Um, what I think doesn't make a good co-working space is different silos. So there are a couple of co-working spaces here in Hong Kong where you walk in and it's like a labyrinth of small offices, and you rent a desk in an office, but you're then just sort of in a room with a limited number of people. You never talk to other people. You don't really have the space for collisions, I suppose. So yeah.
That makes sense, right? Because it really is all about the random interactions at that when in that kind of a space. So I like.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's awkward to go to someone and like knock on a door and say, "Hi, I'm Bob."
It's hard enough to walk up to somebody without a door to introduce yourself. Like having a door and having to knock first would be, yeah, total barrier for me too. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I think just open spaces are fantastic.
Yeah. Because people want to meet, but you don't want to like knock on the office door and
No,
interrupt
you don't want to be
somebody.
that. Yeah, you don't want to be that awkward person either that just randomly goes up to people.
Right.
If you want to catch someone's eye and then, oh, okay,
Right. Something a
hello.
little more natural. Okay, so I actually remembered the question that I wanted to ask before we talked about the co-working spaces. So it's going to seem like we're jumping around a little bit on the interview, but bear with me, people. This is just how it goes on these interviews. I want to talk about feedback loops and how you give each other feedback on your team. So do you have regular retrospectives? Are there one-on-ones? Is there like an annual feedback process? How do you guys do it on your team?
That is a good question. Um, We like to give feedback as early as possible. So we don't really have a structure for like an annual review or a monthly review. We find that maybe a bit too restrictive, and things might bubble up in the meantime while waiting for these structured meetings. So in general, if something is not going to plan or someone is not performing, we like to give that feedback immediately, because it's highly relevant. You can give the example of what didn't work, and it's fresh in everyone's mind. And it doesn't make the person that's receiving that feedback feel like, oh, they've been thinking about this for weeks. Like, why don't you just say it earlier? Because it might not be a big deal at all. But if it's been festering in someone's mind for ages, it kind of becomes a big deal. So we try to give feedback as early on as possible, and as regularly as possible. And the people that fit within our team are receptive to feedback. They want to improve. They want to learn. We've had someone in our team last year who wasn't so receptive to feedback, and if we didn't like her idea or something, she just wouldn't communicate with us for the rest of the week, which was horrible. Horrible as a manager, horrible as a team to send messages and not have any response because they're upset about something and weren't receptive to feedback.
Yeah, that passive aggressive nature can ruin a lot on a team. Yeah. I've had the similar situation where people just shut down. And I used to be that way until I started managing a team of people who also had those qualities. And I changed myself. I worked very hard to change myself because I saw how destructive it was. I mean, it's also not good to duke it out, but on a remote team, it seems like that things bubble under the surface. And I like your comment of like, get it out immediately, because otherwise it will explode in weird ways. These holes open up and small things become big things. And
so, nip it in the bud.
Right. Hard to do in the moment because we're remote. It's easy to let it go, but don't let it go. Right. So don't let it go. Yeah. Okay. So last question, super easy one, which is, what is the best way to get a hold of you? If people want to learn more and they want to get in touch and they want to work for GoSkills, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
Please email me. My email address is bhavneet@goskills.com. And I'm very receptive on emails. Otherwise, if you just want to learn more about GoSkills, head to goskills.com. Check out our courses. If you're interested in a job, please send through your CV. We're always looking for smart, motivated, independent people.
Remote workers, man. That's it. Also remote working. Okay. But one thing caught my eye really quickly in my notes. Sorry I know that I said it was the last question. It was the second to the last question. You said, I'm curious, what are the in-demand skills for 2018? What are people taking? What should we know?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a question we always ask ourselves. So our most popular courses are the Excels and the Microsoft Office. So we started off live selling Excel courses, and they're still our most popular courses. More recently, we've seen a demand in professional qualifications, like project management, professional courses. So basically, we have a series of project management courses that leads up to the PMP, Project Management Professional certification. And we're about to release a bunch of Lean Six Sigma courses, which also lead to the yellow, green, and black belt certifications. And you find basically courses with some sort of tangible certification that you can get out of it at the end are popular. They're in demand because employers look for them, and you can happily put that on your CV, and you can be a qualified professional.
Super important to know that, actually, because people are looking for those certifications. Because I come across people who are like, oh, certifications, schmurtifications, who needs them? But I think actually, if you're looking for a job, it does not hurt. It does not hurt the resume.
Yeah, it puts you above people that don't have the certifications, and also I think it shows the potential employer that you're dedicated to learning on your own, which shows discipline and, like a culture of wanting to improve and learn.
That is a great tip. If you're looking for remote jobs, that is a great tip. Show your dedication to learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. We'll end with that. That's a great one. Show your dedication to learning. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story. It is great to speak with a woman entrepreneur or just an entrepreneur in general, and to hear how you're managing your remote team. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this chat.
Great. And for everybody watching, until next time, be powerful.